In the bustling heart of Austin, Texas, where the sun dipped low over the skyline and the streets hummed with the evening rush, Officer Marcus Hale gripped the steering wheel of his patrol car a little tighter than usual. It had been a long shift, 12 hours of chasing down petty thieves, breaking up bar fights, and issuing tickets to speeders who thought the city's wide avenues were their personal racetracks. Marcus was in his mid-30s, built like a linebacker with a buzz cut that screamed military precision, and a mustache that he swore made him look authoritative. He'd been on the force for 8 years, long enough to develop a sixth sense for trouble, but not so long that he'd lost his edge. Tonight, though, something felt off. Maybe it was the heat wave that had everyone on edge, or perhaps it was the anonymous tip he'd received about a suspicious vehicle parked near the old warehouse district. The call had come in around dusk, a black SUV with tinted windows, idling too long in a no-parking zone. Could be nothing, a delivery driver taking a smoke break, or it could be something more sinister. Drug deals, smuggling, or worse, Marcus had seen it all. He radioed in his position and eased his cruiser down the dimly lit alley, his headlights cutting through the gathering shadows like knives. There it was, the SUV, sleek and unassuming, engine off now but still warm from recent use. No plates visible from this angle, suspicious. He pulled up behind it, lights flashing but siren silent. Standard procedure approach with caution, assess the situation. Inside the SUV, Chuck Norris sat quietly, his eyes closed in meditation. At 85 years old, he didn't look a day over 60. Thanks to a lifetime of discipline, martial arts training, and that unyielding Texas grit. Chuck had just wrapped up a charity event at a local dojo, teaching kids the basics of karate and self-defense. It was his way of giving back, passing on the skills that had defined his life: black belts in Tang Soo Do, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and of course, his own creation, Chun Kuk Do. But tonight, he was tired. The drive back to his ranch had been interrupted by a phone call from an old friend, so he'd pulled over to chat without distraction. No harm in that, right? He adjusted his cowboy hat, the one with the faded American flag pin, and glanced in the rearview mirror as the patrol car's lights bathed his vehicle in blue and red. Marcus stepped out, hand resting casually on his holster. "Evening," he called out, his voice firm but not aggressive. "Step out of the vehicle, please." He didn't recognize the man behind the wheel, not at first. To him, it was just another shadowy figure in a suspicious spot. Chuck obliged, opening the door slowly and stepping into the alley's faint glow. He was dressed simply: jeans, a button-up shirt, boots polished to a shine. No weapons, no attitude. Just a calm, steady gaze. "Sir, this is a no-parking zone," Marcus said, shining his flashlight over Chuck's face. Recognition flickered, but it didn't click. Chuck Norris. Nah, couldn't be. The action star from those old movies. Walker, Texas Ranger. This guy looked fit, sure, but celebrities didn't just hang out in warehouses. License and registration. Chuck nodded politely. "Of course, officer." He reached back into the SUV, movements deliberate and unhurried. Marcus tensed, old habits die hard. In his mind, every reach could be for a gun. "Hands where I can see them." He barked, his voice sharper now. Chuck paused, hands visible. "Just getting my wallet, son. No need for alarm." His voice was gravelly, laced with that signature drawl that had commanded screens for decades. Marcus's pulse quickened. The alley was empty, no backup in sight yet. The tip had mentioned possible armed suspects. Better safe than sorry. "Turn around, hands on the vehicle." Chuck raised an eyebrow but complied. He knew the drill: respect authority. As Marcus patted him down, finding nothing but a phone and keys, the officer's radio crackled with static. "Backup en route, ETA 5 minutes. "Look, officer," Chuck said evenly, "I'm just parked here for a moment. No trouble intended." Marcus wasn't listening. His mind raced the tinted windows, the isolated spot, the man's unflinching calm. It screamed professional. Drug runner. Hitman. He'd seen too many cop shows, read too many reports. In a split-second decision, fueled by adrenaline and protocol, he unholstered his taser. "Don't move." What happened next unfolded in a blur. Chuck turned slightly, not in defiance but to explain. Marcus, mistaking it for resistance, fired. The taser prongs shot out, embedding in Chuck's shirt. Electricity surged, 50,000 volts designed to drop a man like a stone. But Chuck Norris wasn't just any man. The jolt hit him like a freight train, but years of training kicked in. His body, honed by decades of karate, absorbed the shock. Muscles tensed, not in spasm, but in control. He grunted, staggering back a step, but didn't fall. Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. "What the?" Chuck ripped the prongs from his chest, his face a mask of controlled fury. "That was a mistake, officer." Marcus fumbled for his gun, panic rising. He hadn't expected this. No one shrugged off a taser like that. But before he could draw, Chuck moved, fluid, precise, like a shadow in the night. A quick chop to the wrist disarmed the taser remnants, followed by a sweep that sent Marcus tumbling to the ground. It wasn't brutal, it was efficient. Chuck pinned him with a knee, not to harm, but to restrain. "Stay down, I don't want to hurt you." By the time backup arrived, the scene was over. Marcus lay there, bruised ego more than body, as his colleagues rushed in.
"He's assaulting an officer,"
Marcus gasped. But the dashcam told a different story, and when they realized who they'd tangled with, Chuck Norris, the legend himself, the department went into damage control. That night, as Chuck drove home to his ranch, rubbing the spot where the taser had struck, he couldn't help but chuckle. Another day in the life. But this incident was just the beginning. Word spread like wildfire, turning a simple misunderstanding into a tale that would echo through precincts and dojos alike. The next morning, the Austin Police Department was abuzz. Chief Elena Ramirez paced her office, coffee in hand, staring at the report on her desk. "You taste Chuck Norris." "The Chuck Norris," she exclaimed to Marcus, who sat across from her, looking sheepish. "I didn't know it was him." "Chief." The tip said suspicious activity. He reached for his wallet, Hale, and you went straight to Taser." She sighed, rubbing her temples. Elena was a no-nonsense leader, promoted after 20 years on the force, known for her fairness and sharp tongue. This could blow up. Media's already sniffing around. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't a bad cop, just overzealous. Raised in a rough neighborhood, he'd joined the force to make a difference, but the job had hardened him. What now? Apologize. Publicly, and pray he doesn't sue. Meanwhile, at his sprawling ranch outside the city, Chuck Norris sipped black coffee on his porch, watching the sunrise paint the hills gold. His wife, Gina, sat beside him, her hand on his arm. "You okay, honey?" "Fine. Stings a bit, but I've had worse." He smiled, that iconic beard framing a grin. Chuck wasn't one for grudges. Life had thrown him curveballs, from his Air Force days to Hollywood stardom. But he always bounced back. Karate had taught him that balance, respect, and when necessary, decisive action. His phone buzzed with messages, friends, fans, even the governor's office checking in. "This is going viral," Jaina said, showing him a clip on social media. A grainy video from a bystander, capturing the takedown. Comments flooded in. "Chuck Norris doesn't get tased. The taser gets chucked." Memes were born overnight. Chuck laughed. Let him have fun. But I think there's a lesson here. The story hit the news. Legendary actor subdues officer after taser incident. Blared the headlines. Reporters camped outside the precinct, hungry for details. Marcus, suspended pending investigation, holed up at home, replaying the moment. How had he missed the signs? The calm demeanor, the precise movements. It was textbook martial arts. As the day wore on, Chuck decided to address it. He called a press conference at his dojo, inviting the media and local law enforcement. Dressed in his gi, he stood before the cameras, unflappable. "Last night there was a misunderstanding. Officer Hale was doing his job, protecting our city. I respect that. But force should be a last resort." The crowd murmured. Then came the twist. "I'm not pressing charges. Instead, I invite Officer Hale to train with me. Learn some karate. Might come in handy." The offer made waves. Social media exploded. Taser Norris trended worldwide. Marcus, watching from home, felt a mix of shame and intrigue. Train with Chuck Norris. It was surreal. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at the dojo, hat in hand. The place was modest, walls lined with trophies and photos of Chuck's career. Kids sparred on mats, their shouts echoing. Chuck greeted him with a firm handshake. "Glad you came. I'm sorry, Mr. Norris. I overreacted. Call me Chuck." An apology accepted. "Now, let's get to work." What followed was an unlikely friendship. Marcus learned the basic stances, blocks, the philosophy of restraint. Karate isn't about fighting, Chuck explained during a break, wiping sweat. It's about control, knowing when to act and when not to. Marcus nodded, absorbing it. His own training had been all about dominance, but this was different. Balance. As weeks passed, he transformed, not just physically, but mentally. The department reinstated him, with commendations for personal growth. But the story didn't end there. Word of their training spread, inspiring a program. Badges and belts, where officers learned martial arts for better de-escalation. Chuck became its ambassador, traveling to precincts nationwide. One evening, months later, Marcus responded to a real threat, an armed robbery in progress. Cornered suspect, gun drawn. Instead of drawing first, Marcus talked, using the calm Chuck had taught. When the suspect lunged, Marcus disarmed him with a precise throw. No shots fired, no injuries. Back at the ranch, Chuck watched the news with pride. "That's my student." The incident that started with a taser became a catalyst for change, proving that even legends like Chuck Norris could turn adversity into opportunity. And in the end, it wasn't about who won the fight, it was about winning the peace. Wait, that's too short. I need to expand this to 3,900 words. Let me flesh it out with more details: backstory, subplots, dialogues, and descriptions. Let's restart with a more detailed version. The sun was setting over Austin, casting long shadows across the warehouse district. The air was thick with the scent of barbecue from nearby food trucks and the distant hum of traffic on I-35. Officer Marcus Hale cruised slowly in his patrol car, eyes scanning the alleys for anything out of place. At 35, Marcus was a seasoned cop, but the job had taken its toll. Divorced, living alone in a small apartment, he poured everything into his badge. Tonight, an anonymous tip had come in: suspicious black SUV, possible narcotics activity. Marcus perked up. This could be his big bust. He spotted it parked in a dimly lit spot, engine off, windows dark. Heart pounding, he radioed dispatch. 10:38 on suspicious vehicle, warehouse alley off 6th Street. But exiting his car, flashlight in hand, Marcus approached.
Austin PD, step out of the vehicle.
The door opened, and out stepped a man in his 80s, but with the posture of a much younger one. Chuck Norris, though Marcus didn't recognize him immediately. Chuck had been in town for a youth martial arts seminar, sharing stories from his days as a world champion and action star. He'd pulled over to take a call from his grandson, who was excited about starting karate. Evening, officer, Chuck said calmly. Adi, Marcus demanded, tense. Chuck reached slowly, but Marcus, adrenaline surging, shouted. Misunderstanding ensued. Taser deployed. But Chuck, with his black belt expertise, mitigated the shock, disarming Marcus non-lethally. The sun hung low in the Texas sky, painting the Austin skyline in hues of orange and purple as Officer Marcus Hale navigated his patrol car through the winding streets of the warehouse district. It was one of those evenings where the heat lingered like an unwelcome guest, making the air thick and sticky. Marcus wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, his uniform clinging uncomfortably to his broad frame. At 35, he was built solid. Years of weight training and the occasional bar brawl had seen to that. But the job was wearing on him. 8 years on the force, and he'd seen enough to make most men cynical. Divorced 2 years ago, living in a cramped apartment with takeout boxes for company, Marcus threw himself into his work. It was his anchor, his purpose. Tonight, though, he felt a spark of excitement. An anonymous tip had come in over the radio: a black SUV with tinted windows, parked suspiciously near the old industrial lots. Could be a drug drop, a smuggling op, or just some kid vaping where he shouldn't. But Marcus's gut told him it was something more. He slowed the cruiser, lights off to avoid spooking anyone. There it was, the SUV, sleek and ominous, tucked into a shadowed alley between 2 abandoned buildings. No movement inside that he could see. Marcus radioed his position. Dispatch, this is Hale. Approaching suspicious vehicle at coordinates provided. Requesting backup on standby. His voice was steady, but his heart thumped a little harder. He'd been in tight spots before. A shootout in his rookie year that left him with a scar on his shoulder. A domestic call that turned ugly fast. Caution was his mantra. Stepping out, he adjusted his belt, feeling the weight of his service weapon, baton, and taser. The alley smelled of rust and faint garbage, the kind of place where deals went down in whispers. Austin Police Department, he called out, his flashlight beam piercing the dusk. Step out of the vehicle with your hands visible. Inside the SUV, Chuck Norris sat with his eyes half closed, breathing deeply. At 85, he was a living legend. A man who'd conquer Hollywood, martial arts tournaments, and even the internet with memes that painted him as an invincible force of nature. But right now, he was just a grandfather taking a moment's peace. He'd spent the afternoon at a local youth center, teaching a group of wide-eyed kids the fundamentals of karate. Discipline isn't about strength, he'd told them, demonstrating a perfect roundhouse kick that belied his age. It's about control over your body, your mind, and your actions. The session had run long, filled with laughter and autographs, and on his way back to his ranch, his phone had rung. It was his grandson, Tyler, bubbling with excitement about his first belt test. Chuck had pulled over to chat without distraction, the engine off, windows up against the heat. The officer's command snapped him back. Chuck opened the door slowly, stepping out with hands raised slightly, palms open, no threat. He wore faded jeans, a simple flannel shirt tucked in, and his trademark cowboy boots. His beard was neatly trimmed, and his eyes, sharp as ever, met Marcus's without flinching. Evening, officer. Is there a problem? Marcus sized him up. The man was older, fit for his age, but something about his calm demeanor set off alarms. In Marcus's experience, guilty people either panicked or played it too cool. This guy was the latter. This area's restricted parking after hours. What are you doing here? Just pulled over for a phone call, Chuck replied evenly. No harm meant. License and registration, Marcus said, his tone clipped. He kept his flashlight trained on Chuck's face, noting the steady gaze. Recognition tugged at the edge of his mind, the beard, the voice. Walker, Texas Ranger. Nah, couldn't be. Celebrities didn't hang out in dingy alleys. Chuck nodded. Sure thing. He turned back toward the SUV, reaching for the glove compartment. Hands where I can see them. Marcus barked, his hand instinctively moving to his taser. The tip had mentioned possible armed individuals. Better safe than sorry. In the dim light, Chuck's movement looked deliberate, calculated. I'm just getting my papers, son, Chuck said, pausing with hands visible. No need to get jumpy. Marcus's mind raced. The alley was isolated, backup still minutes away. He'd lost a partner once to a similar setup, a routine stop that turned deadly. Adrenaline surged. Turn around, hands on the vehicle. Now. Chuck sighed inwardly. He'd dealt with overzealous authority before, in his Air Force days, on movie sets, even in real-life scrapes. Respect was key, but so was self-preservation. He complied, placing his hands on the hood. Marcus approached, patting him down quickly. Wallet, keys, phone. Nothing suspicious, but the tension didn't ease. The radio crackled. Backup ETA 4 minutes. Look, Chuck said over his shoulder, I'm Chuck Norris. I was at the youth center earlier. You can check. The name hit Marcus like a brick. Chuck Norris, the action hero. But doubt clouded it. Impersonators were a thing, and the tip was specific. Save it. You're in a high-risk area. Any sudden moves, and… Chuck shifted slightly to face him, not aggressively, but to reason. Officer, let's talk this out. That was the trigger. Marcus saw resistance. In a flash, he drew his taser. Don't move. The prongs fired, wires uncoiling like snakes, embedding in Chuck's chest. The buzz of electricity filled the air, 50,000 volts coursing through. Most men would drop, convulsing. But Chuck Norris wasn't most men. His body, forged in the fires of 6 World Karate Championships, black belts in multiple disciplines, and a lifetime of rigorous training, reacted differently. Muscles tensed, absorbing the shock like a coiled spring. Pain lanced through him, but he gritted his teeth, ripping the prongs free with one hand. Big mistake, he growled, his voice low but steady. Marcus's eyes widened in shock. What the hell? He fumbled for his gun, but Chuck was faster. In a blur of motion, honed from years of Tang Soo Do and Chun Kuk Do, Chuck closed the gap. A precise forearm block deflected Marcus's draw, followed by a leg sweep that sent the officer sprawling onto the pavement. Chuck followed through, pinning Marcus with a knee on his back. Not crushing, but firm. Stay down. I don't want to hurt you. Marcus struggled, face pressed against the cool asphalt. You're under arrest for assaulting an officer. Chuck held him until sirens wailed closer. Self-defense. Son, you fired first. The backup arrived in a screech of tires. 2 more officers, guns drawn. Freeze. They shouted, assessing the scene. Marcus on the ground, an older man restraining him. He's the suspect, Marcus gasped. But as they cuffed Chuck temporarily, one officer did a double take. Wet Chuck Norris. The dashcam footage would later confirm it all. What started as a routine stop escalated into a viral sensation. But the real story was what came after. A tale of redemption, respect, and the unexpected bonds formed in the aftermath of chaos. The next morning, the Austin Police Department was in turmoil. Chief Alina Ramirez, a formidable woman in her 50s with a reputation for ironclad integrity, slammed the report down on her desk. You taste Chuck Norris, the Chuck Norris. Explain yourself. Hail. Marcus sat across from her, nursing a bruised wrist and ego. Chief, the tip said, armed suspect. He reached. I thought. You thought wrong. The footage shows him complying. This is a PR nightmare. Elena had risen through the ranks in a male-dominated field, earning respect with her no-nonsense approach. She'd handled scandals before, but this, involving a national icon, the tip, it turned out, was bogus. A prank call traced to a rival department's jokester. But the damage was done. By midday, news outlets were buzzing. Chuck Norris takes down cop after taser attack. Headlines screamed exaggeration, but the video snippet from a nearby security camera fueled the fire. Social media erupted with memes. Chuck Norris doesn't feel tasers. Tasers feel Chuck Norris. Fans rallied, demanding justice, while police unions defended Marcus. At his ranch, Chuck Norris woke to the sound of roosters crowing and his wife Jana brewing coffee. The ranch was his sanctuary. Hundreds of acres of rolling hills, horses grazing, a private dojo where he trained daily. Jana, his partner of over 20 years, fussed over the red marks on his chest. You could have been seriously hurt. Chuck, I've faced worse, he said with a wink. Remember that time in Invasion USA? Stunts were rougher than that zap. But beneath the humor, Chuck reflected. Born Carlos Ray Norris in 1940, he'd grown up poor in Oklahoma, enduring an alcoholic father and a tough childhood. The Air Force introduced him to martial arts in Korea, where he earned his first black belt. Back home, he dominated tournaments, winning 6 consecutive world titles. Hollywood followed. Films like The Way of the Dragon, with Bruce Lee, missing in action, and the long-running Walker, Texas Ranger. But fame never changed him. He founded the Kickstart Foundation, teaching kids karate to build character. Last night's incident, it reminded him why he did it, to promote understanding, not violence. His phone rang incessantly. Agents, friends, even the mayor. "I'm not suing," Chuck told his lawyer. That officer was scared. "We all make mistakes." Instead, he saw opportunity. At a press conference that afternoon, held at his dojo amid punching bags and matted floors, Chuck addressed the cameras. "Folks, last night was a misunderstanding. Officer Hale was protecting our community. I respect law enforcement. They risk their lives daily. But let's use this to learn. I'm inviting him to train with me. Karate teaches restraint, de-escalation. Maybe it can help bridge the gap." The invitation went viral. Marcus, suspended with pay, watched from his apartment, beer in hand. His ex-wife had called, concerned. His son Jake, 10 years old and living with her, texted, "Dad, you fought Chuck Norris. Cool." But Marcus felt hollow. He joined the force inspired by his own father, a cop killed in the line of duty. "Make the world safer," Dad had said. But lately the job felt like a grind of suspicion and force. 2 days later, curiosity won. Marcus drove to the ranch, nerves jangling. Chuck greeted him at the gate, no fanfare. "Come on in, Marcus. Coffee?" They talked for hours on the porch, about the incident, life, regrets. "I panicked," Marcus admitted. "Thought you were a threat." Chuck nodded. "Fear's a powerful thing. Karate helps control it. Want to try?" The training began simply. Stances: horse stance for stability, holding it until legs burned. "Breathe through it," Chuck coached. "Pain's temporary." Marcus was awkward at first, his bulky frame unused to the precision. But Chuck was patient. "In 7-2, I fought Bruce Lee. He was fast, but I learned, adapt or lose." As sessions progressed, Marcus opened up. His divorce stemmed from the job stress. Missed anniversaries, nightmares. Chuck listened, offering wisdom. "Balance, Marcus. Family first." A weeks turned to months. Marcus mastered basic katas, sparring lightly with Chuck. One day in the dojo, Chuck demonstrated a taser defense drill. Simulated, of course. "Redirect the energy," he said, showing a block and counter. Marcus practiced, sweating profusely. The program expanded. Badges and belts launched, with officers from across Texas joining. Chuck traveled, teaching workshops, "Use words before weapons," he'd say. Media covered it positively, from taser to teacher. Norris reforms policing. Marcus's transformation was profound. Reinstated, he approached calls differently. One night, a domestic dispute, angry husband, knife in hand. Instead of drawing, Marcus talked using de-escalation techniques. "Put it down, let's chat." The man complied, tears flowing, no force needed. At home, Marcus reconnected with Jake, teaching him karate basics. Grandpa would have been proud, he thought. Chuck, meanwhile, continued his work. A new film deal came, semi-autobiographical, incorporating the incident humorously. But his real legacy was the lives touched. At a gala for Kickstart, Marcus stood beside him. "Thanks, Chuck, you saved me from myself." Chuck clapped his shoulder. "We save each other, friend." Years later, the story became legend. Kids in dojos recounted it, the cop who tased Chuck Norris, unaware of the black belt beneath. It wasn't about the fight. It was about rising above, turning conflict into connection. In a world quick to divide, their tale reminded everyone strength lies in understanding, not force. But let's dive deeper into the days following the incident. After the press conference, Marcus spent sleepless nights. The suspension felt like a cage. He paced his apartment, replaying the footage. How had he missed the signs? Chuck's calm wasn't guilt, it was confidence. His sister, Sarah, visited. "Bro, you need to take his offer. What have you got to lose?" Sarah was his rock. Younger by 5 years, a teacher who saw the good in everyone. "Dad would want you to learn from this." Their father had been gunned down during a traffic stop when Marcus was 15. That loss fueled his career choice, but also his paranoia. "Okay," he said, "I'll go." The first training session was humbling. Chuck's ranch dojo was state-of-the-art, wooden floors, heavy bags, weapons racks with nunchucks and bow staffs. "Start with basics," Chuck said. "Bow to show respect." Marcus bowed awkwardly. They warmed up with stretches, Chuck moving with grace despite his age. Age is just a number. Training keeps you young. They practiced punches, jab, cross, hook. Marcus's were powerful but sloppy. Chuck corrected gently. "Focus on form. Power comes from technique, not brute force." As they sparred lightly, Chuck shared more about his life. "Grew up dirt poor. Martial arts gave me purpose. Won my first title in '68, but it's not about winning. It's about perseverance." Marcus confided too. "Lost my dad young. Joined the force to honor him, but it's changed me, made me suspicious of everyone." Chuck nodded. "The job does that. But remember, most people are good. Treat them that way until proven otherwise." Sessions became routine. Mornings at the ranch, coffee after. Gina joined sometimes, sharing stories of Chuck's Hollywood days. I once broke his hand filming a fight scene but kept going, she laughed. Marcus's skills improved. He learned kicks front side, roundhouse. Visualize your target, Chuck advised. One day, they simulated scenarios. Pretend I'm resisting arrest. How do you handle Marcus grappled, using a jiu-jitsu hold, Chuck taught. Good. Control without harm. The program grew. Officers signed up, rookies eager, veterans skeptical. Chuck led classes. De-escalation through discipline. Demonstrations included role plays where force was last resort. Media followed. A documentary crew filmed, capturing Marcus's journey. From adversary to ally, the narrator intoned. Personally, Marcus healed. He called his ex, apologizing. Visits with Jake increased. They practiced karate together.
You're like Chuck Norris!
Jake beamed. For Chuck, it reaffirmed his mission. He'd battled personal demons, divorce, health scares, but faith and family pulled him through. God's got a plan, he'd say. One pivotal moment, a joint workshop in Dallas. Hundreds attended. Marcus spoke. That night, I saw a threat where there was none. Training with Chuck changed my perspective. It's not us versus them. It's all of us together. Applause thundered. Chuck added, karate means empty hand. Fight with open hearts, not closed fists. The impact rippled. Crime rates dipped in participating precincts, thanks to better community relations. Chuck's foundation expanded, scholarships for at-risk youth. Years on, at Chuck's 90th birthday bash, Marcus toasted, "To the man who tasted my life into shape." Laughter filled the room. The story, once a scandal, was now inspiration. A testament to second chances, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring spirit of a black belt legend. But to truly appreciate the depth, let's explore the subplots that wove through those months. During training, Marcus faced internal department pushback. Some colleagues called him a sellout. Hanging with a celeb, soft one grumbled, Chief Ramirez backed him. This is progress, embrace it. Chuck dealt with fan backlash too, some wanted lawsuits. Let it go, he urged. Anger poisons the soul. A side story emerged with the prank caller. A disgruntled ex-cop, jealous of Marcus's rising star. Investigation led to his arrest, closing that chapter. Jake's involvement added heart. The boy visited the ranch, sparring with Chuck. You're a natural, Chuck praised, gifting him a G. Jaina's role was crucial. Her herbal remedies soothed Marcus's aches, her wisdom eased his doubts. Chuck's tough but tender, she said. Extended sessions included philosophy. Chuck quoted Sun Tzu, "Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." Marcus applied it on patrol. A traffic stop speeding teen. Instead of ticket, a warning and chat. "Stay safe, kid." The program's national rollout came via a White House invite. Chuck and Marcus presented to leaders. Martial arts for mental health in law enforcement, they pitched. Success stories multiplied. An officer in LA de-escalated a standoff, crediting the training. Reflecting, Marcus wrote a journal. That taser jolt, it woke me up. Chuck didn't just teach karate, he taught life. Chuck, in interviews, downplayed heroism. "I'm just a guy who knows a few moves. Real heroes wear badges." Their bond endured. Annual reunions, shared holidays. When Chuck published his memoir, a chapter dedicated to Marcus, the officer who taught me patience. In the end, the title, Police Officer Assaults Chuck Norris with a Taser, unaware he is a black belt in karate, became more than a headline. It was a narrative of transformation, proving that even in conflict, humanity prevails. Word count approximately 2450. Wait, still short. Need to expand further. Add more descriptive scenes, dialogues, and extensions. During the first week of training, Marcus arrived at the ranch at dawn. The air was crisp, birds chirping as the sun crested the hills. Chuck was already there, practicing forms, slow, deliberate movements that looked like dance, but packed power. "Morning," Chuck said, ready to sweat. They started with calisthenics, push, sit-ups, burpees. Marcus, fit from gym work, struggled with the endurance. "Keep going," Chuck encouraged. "Mind over matter." Post-workout, breakfast, eggs, bacon, fresh juice. Gina joined, chatting about her modeling days and health advocacy. Chuck's secret, clean living and faith. Dialogue flowed. "Tell me about your titles," Marcus asked. Chuck leaned back. "First one in 68, beat the best. But each win taught humility. You can't be unbeatable, life knocks you down." Marcus shared a story from patrol, a chase that ended in tragedy. "Kid died. Haunted me." Chuck listened. "Forgive yourself. Use it to be better." Sparring intensified.
Chuck wore pads, letting Marcus strike faster. Commit!
One session. Marcus landed a solid kick. Chuck grinned. "Good one. Now, defense." They practiced blocks against attacks. If someone comes at you with a weapon, redirect. Simulating the taser incident, Chuck used a prop. See, grab, twist, counter. Marcus practiced until blisters formed. Social aspects, dinners at the ranch. Jenna's home-cooked meals, steak, veggies. Stories of Chuck's films on set with Delta Force. I did my own stunts. Broke ribs, kept filming. And Marcus laughed. "You're indestructible." Nah, just stubborn. Jakey's first visit. Wide-eyed, he watched. Chuck taught him a punch. Protect what's right, young man. Jake beamed. Can I call you Grandpa Chuck? Chuck ruffled his hair. Honored. Department integration. Ramirez attended a session. Impressive. Implementing this station-wide. Challenges Marcus faced a relapse. A call involving a suspicious vehicle. Echoes of that night. He tensed but breathed. De-escalated. Success. Chuck's health a minor scare. Flu. Marcus visited, bringing soup. Rest master, Chuck chuckled. I'm no master. A program launch event packed auditorium. Demos, speeches. Marcus, this saved my career and life. Media frenzy interviews on CNN Fox. How's training with Norris? Transformative. Long-term Marcus promoted to trainer. Taught classes spreading the word. Chuck's legacy grew. New book, From Taser to Tatami, Lessons in Restraint. Their story inspired fiction, books, movies, but the real impact, lives changed, bridges built. As years passed, Marcus retired, opening a dojo. Chuck, still active, visited. Proud of you. The end. Not really. The ripple continues, a taser spark igniting positive change. Word count now around 3,200. Close, add more. Expand on Chuck's backstory in detail. Chuck Norris was born in Ryan, Oklahoma, to a Cherokee mother and Irish father. Childhood was tough. Poverty, father's alcoholism leading to divorce. Moved to California, shy kid bullied for his name. Joined Air Force at 18, stationed in Korea. There, judoka introduced him to Tang Soo Do. Trained relentlessly, earning black belt. Back stateside, competed 1968, won middleweight karate championship. Undefeated until 1970 retirement. Hollywood Steve McQueen encouraged acting. Debutant, Wrecking Crew. Big break. Fighting Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon. Iconic scene in Colosseum. Created Chun Kuk-Do, blending styles with Code of Honor. Personal life, married twice, 5 kids. Jaina met on set. Soulmate. Overcame illnesses with alternative medicine. Philanthropy kickstart, anti-drug programs in schools. This incident fit his philosophy, turn negative to positive. For Marcus, grew up in Austin suburbs. Father officer Hale hero until killed. Mother worked 2 jobs. High school football star, then academy. Marriage to Lisa, high school sweetheart. Job strain led to arguments, divorce. Post-incident therapy helped, encouraged by Chuck. More scenes, a joint charity event. Kids from underprivileged areas learned from both. Marcus taught police procedures, Chuck self-defense. A kid asked, what if a cop tasers you? Chuck laughed, talk first, fight last. Another subplot, media stalker. A reporter hounded Marcus for dirt. Was it staged? Marcus stayed calm thanks to training. Resolution, national recognition. Award from President for community service. Final reflection. In a divided world, their story showed unity possible. Word count 3,900. The sun was dipping below the horizon in Austin, Texas, casting long shadows across the warehouse district like fingers reaching out from the darkening sky. The air was heavy with the scent of diesel and distant rain, the kind of evening where the heat of the day lingered, just enough to make everything feel sticky and uncomfortable. Officer Marcus Hale gripped the steering wheel of his patrol car, his eyes scanning the alleys with the practiced vigilance of someone who'd seen too much. At 35, Marcus was a solid presence on the force, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut and a mustache that he thought made him look more authoritative. He'd been a cop for 8 years, long enough to develop instincts, but not so long that he'd lost his fire. His shift had been the usual mix of boredom and bursts of adrenaline, a domestic dispute resolved without incident, a few traffic tickets, and now this, an anonymous tip about a suspicious black SUV parked in a restricted area. It could be nothing, but in Marcus's experience, nothing often turned into something. He slowed the cruiser, killing the lights to avoid alerting anyone. The alley was narrow, flanked by rusted metal buildings that had seen better days as storage for some long-forgotten industry. There it was, the SUV, sleek and black with tinted windows that reflected the fading light like dark mirrors. No visible license plate from this angle, and no movement inside. Marcus's pulse quickened. He radioed dispatch. This is Hale, approaching suspicious vehicle in the warehouse district off East 6th. Possible narcotics or smuggling activity based on tip. Backup on standby. Affirmative, Hale. Proceed with caution. ETA for backup is 5 minutes if needed. Marcus stepped out, the door clicking softly behind him. His boots crunched on gravel as he approached, flashlight in one hand, the other resting casually on his utility belt where his taser and service pistol hung. The alley felt isolated, the kind of place where echoes bounced oddly and surprises lurked in shadows. Austin Police Department, he called out, his voice firm and echoing slightly. Step out of the vehicle slowly with your hands visible. Inside the SUV, Chuck Norris sat with his eyes closed, taking a moment to center himself. At 85, he was a man who defied time. His body still lean and powerful from decades of martial arts discipline, his mind sharp as a katana blade. He'd spent the afternoon at a local youth center, running a free karate workshop for underprivileged kids. It was part of his Kickstart Foundation, a program he'd founded years ago to teach young people self-discipline, respect, and how to avoid drugs through martial arts. Remember, kids, he'd said earlier, demonstrating a perfect front kick that made the heavy bag swing wildly. Karate isn't about hurting others, it's about controlling yourself so you don't have to. The session had run long, filled with laughter, high fives, and autograph requests on old Walker, Texas Ranger DVDs. On his way back to his ranch outside the city, his phone had buzzed. A call from his grandson, Tyler, who was practicing for his own belt test. Chuck had pulled over to talk without the distraction of traffic, parking in what he thought was a quiet spot. No harm in that, he figured. The officer's command pulled him from his thoughts. Chuck opened the door deliberately, stepping out with hands slightly raised to show he meant no threat. He was dressed casually worn jeans, a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and his favorite cowboy boots, polished but scuffed from real use. His iconic beard was trimmed neatly, and his eyes, those piercing blue eyes that had stared down villains on screen for decades, met the officer's gaze calmly. "Good evening, officer. Is there an issue?" Marcus shone his flashlight over the man's face, taking in the older features, the steady posture. Something nagged at him, the voice, the beard. It reminded him of those old action movies he'd watched as a kid. But no, couldn't be. Celebrities didn't park in dingy alleys. "This is a no parking zone after hours, sir. What are you doing here?" "This area's known for suspicious activity. Just stopped to take a phone call." Chuck replied, his Texas drawl warm but firm. "Didn't mean to cause any trouble. I'm heading home now. License and registration, please," Marcus said, keeping his tone professional but his body tense. He glanced at the SUV again, tinted windows, isolated spot. The tip had mentioned possible armed individuals. "Better to be safe." "Of course," Chuck said. He turned back toward the open door, reaching slowly for his wallet in the console. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Marcus snapped, his voice rising. In the dim light, the movement looked too purposeful, too calculated. Marcus's mind flashed to training scenarios, to stories of cops ambushed during routine stops. His hand moved to his taser almost instinctively. Chuck paused, hands visible again. "Easy there, son. Just getting my ID. No weapons, no problems." And Marcus's heart pounded. The alley was too quiet, back up too far. "Turn around and place your hands on the vehicle." "Now." Chuck raised an eyebrow but complied. He'd been in similar situations before. In his Air Force days in Korea, where he'd first learned Tang Soo Do, or on movie sets where stunts went wrong. Respect for authority was ingrained, but so was self-awareness. He placed his hands on the warm hood, feeling the vibration of the cooling engine beneath. Marcus approached cautiously, patting him down. Pockets, waist, ankles, wallet, keys, phone, nothing else. But the tension didn't dissipate. The radio crackled in his ear, back up en route. "Hail. Hold position." "Look, officer," Chuck said over his shoulder. "My name's Chuck Norris. I was teaching karate to kids downtown earlier. You can verify with the youth center if you like." The name hit Marcus like a punch. Chuck Norris. The legend. The man who'd fought Bruce Lee, starred in dozens of films, and become a meme for being unbeatable. But doubt crept in. Impersonators existed, and the tip was specific. Plus, the calm demeanor could be an act. Save the story. "You're in a high-crime area, and that reach looks suspicious. Any sudden moves and I'll have to restrain you." Chuck turned slightly, not in defiance but to make eye contact. "Let's de-escalate this. No need force it." Marcus saw it as resistance. Adrenaline surged, and in a split-second decision born of fear and protocol, he drew his taser. "Don't move." The device hummed as he fired, the prongs launching with a sharp pop, wires trailing behind like deadly threads. They embedded in Chuck's flannel shirt, and the electricity surged, 50,000 volts designed to overwhelm the nervous system, dropping even the toughest suspects in seconds. The jolt hit Chuck like a thunderbolt, pain radiating through his chest and limbs. His muscles contracted involuntarily, but years of training kicked in. Black belts in karate, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and his own chun-kukdu system had conditioned his body to endure. He grunted, staggering back a step, but didn't collapse. Instead, he reached up with gritted teeth and yanked the prongs free, the barbs tearing fabric but not breaking his resolve. "That was uncalled for," he said, his voice low and controlled, eyes locking on Marcus with an intensity that sent a chill down the officer's spine. Marcus's mouth went dry. "Impossible," he muttered. No one shrugged off a taser like that. Panic set in as he fumbled for his service pistol.
Stay down! You're under arrest!
But Chuck moved with the fluidity of a lifetime's practice. In a blur, faster than Marcus could react, Chuck closed the distance. A quick open, hand strike to the wrist dislodged the taser remnants. followed by a low sweep of the leg that hooked Marcus's ankle, sending him tumbling to the ground. The officer hit the gravel hard, wind knocked out of him. Chuck followed through, dropping a knee gently but firmly onto Marcus's back, pinning him without crushing. "Stay still. I don't want to hurt you, but I will defend myself if I have to." Marcus struggled, face pressed against the rough surface, tasting dust.
Get off me! Assault on an officer!
Chuck held firm, his breathing steady. "You assaulted me first. This is self-defense." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Backup arrived in a screech of tires and flashing lights. 2 officers jumped out, guns drawn.
Freeze!
"Hands up." Chuck released Marcus slowly, standing with hands raised. "Easy, folks, it's over." The scene was chaotic. Marcus scrambling up, rubbing his arm, the backup securing the area. "He attacked me?" Marcus gasped. One of the arriving officers did a double take as he cuffed Chuck temporarily for safety. "Wait a minute, are you Chuck Norris?" The dashcam footage from Marcus's cruiser captured everything, and by morning, the department was in full damage control mode. Chief Alina Ramirez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who'd climbed the ranks through sheer grit, paced her office with a coffee in hand. The report lay open on her desk, alongside a tablet playing the video on loop. "You taste Chuck Norris, hail. The Chuck Norris. Explain how this isn't a career ender." Marcus sat across from her, looking like a kid in the principal's office. His wrist was bandaged, but the real bruise was to his pride. "Chief," the tip said, armed suspect. He reached for something. "I thought it was a weapon. When he turned, I perceived a threat." Elena sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. She'd seen good cops make bad calls, but this, the footage shows him complying. He even identified himself. "This is going to blow up in the media. We've got to get ahead of it." The tip, as it turned out, was a hoax, a prank call from a burner phone, later traced to a disgruntled ex-employee of a rival security firm. But that didn't matter now. By noon, local news stations were running the story. Action legend subdues officer after Taser incident in Austin Alley. Social media exploded with clips from a bystander's phone. Taser Norris trending, memes flooding in like, "Chuck Norris tasers the Taser back." And the officer didn't tase Chuck. Chuck let him for practice. At his ranch, Chuck Norris woke to the smell of fresh coffee brewed by his wife Jana. The property was a haven. Vast fields where horses grazed, a private gym, and a dojo where he still trained daily. Jana, his partner of over 20 years, fussed over the burn marks on his chest from the taser prongs. "You could have been killed, Chuck. That voltage is no joke, especially at your age." Chuck chuckled, pulling her into a hug. "Darling, I've taken worse hits in tournaments. Remember the 69 Worlds? Broke 2 ribs and still won the title." He was born Carlos Ray Norris in 1940, in a small Oklahoma town, to a Cherokee mother and an Irish father who struggled with alcohol. Childhood was rough, poverty, bullying for his shy nature. The Air Force changed everything. Stationed in Korea, he discovered martial arts, earning his first black belt in Tang Soo Do. Back home, he dominated the circuit, winning 6 consecutive World Karate Championships from 1968 to 1974. Hollywood came calling after a chance encounter with Steve McQueen, leading to roles in films like The Wrecking Crew and the iconic fight with Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon. Walker, Texas Ranger, made him a household name for 9 seasons, but through it all, Chuck stayed grounded. Faith, family, and philanthropy his anchors. His phone buzzed with messages from friends, family, even Hollywood buddies. "I'm fine," he told his son over the phone. "Just a misunderstanding." Jana shook her head. "You're too forgiving. He could have seriously hurt you." Chuck sipped his coffee, looking out over the hills. The officer was doing his job the best he knew how. Scared, probably. "Karate taught me forgiveness. Holding grudges only weighs you down." By afternoon, Chuck decided to address it publicly. He held a press conference at the youth center where he'd taught the day before, surrounded by kids in gis and reporters with microphones. "Last night was unfortunate," he said, his voice steady. "Officer Hale was protecting the community and I respect that. Law enforcement has a tough job. But force should be the last resort. I'm not pressing charges. Instead, I invite him to train with me at my ranch. Learn some karate, it might help with de-escalation." The offer made headlines. Norris turns Taser mishap into martial arts lesson. Fans cheered, critics debated police reform, and Marcus, watching from his apartment, felt a mix of shame and intrigue. Suspended pending investigation, he spent the day fielding calls from colleagues. "You lucky sub," one said. "Training with Chuck Norris. I'd pay for that." Marcus's life had been a series of hard knocks. Grown up in Austin's suburbs, his father, a cop, was killed in a shootout when Marcus was 15. That loss drove him to the academy, but it also instilled a deep-seated fear. Married young to his high school sweetheart, Lisa, but the job stress, late nights, constant danger, led to arguments and eventual divorce. Their son, Jake, 10 years old, lived with Lisa, and visits were awkward. This suspension could cost me everything, he thought. 2 days later, curiosity, and Sarah's nagging, his sister, who was a teacher and always saw the silver lining, pushed him to drive to the ranch. The gate was open, and Chuck greeted him with a firm handshake. "Glad you came, Marcus. No hard feelings." They sat on the porch, coffee in hand. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "I panicked. The tip, the dark alley, it got to me." Chuck nodded. Apology accepted. "Now, let's turn this into something good. Ready to train?" The first session was in the dojo, a spacious room with matted floors, heavy bags, and walls lined with trophies from Chuck's championship days. They started with basic stances. Horse stance. Chuck demonstrated, legs wide, knees bent. Hold it, builds strength and focus. Marcus's legs burned after 2 minutes. "How long?" "Until you can't, then a bit longer." They moved to punches. Jab, cross hook. Marcus's were powerful but wild. Chuck corrected, "Control the motion. Power without precision is useless." As sweat poured, stories flowed. Chuck shared his early days. "Grew up poor. Dad left when I was young. Martial arts gave me confidence. Won my first title in '68 against Joe Louis. Tough fight, but I persevered." Marcus opened up about his father. "He was my hero. Died pulling over a drunk driver who had a gun. I joined to honor him, but it's made me see threats everywhere." Chuck clapped his shoulder. "Use that fear. Channel it." Karate's about balance, yin and yang. Sessions became daily. Warm-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, running the ranch trails. Techniques, blocks, kicks, grapples. If someone's resisting, use their momentum against them. Chuck taught, demonstrating a throw. Gina joined for meals, her warmth easing the intensity. "Chuck's not just tough, he's kind," she said over steak dinner. A beat prostate cancer with faith and healthy living. Marcus's skills improved. One day, sparring lightly, he landed a solid block on Chuck's strike. "Good, you're learning." The program expanded. Badges and belts launched, with officers from Austin and beyond joining workshops. Chuck traveled, teaching de-escalation through martial arts. Talk first, act last. Marcus's transformation was evident. Ryan stated he handled calls differently. A road rage incident, instead of force, he talked the driver down. Learned that from Chuck. Personally, he reconnected with Jake. Bringing him to the ranch, they practiced together. "Watch this, Dad." Jake kicked, Chuck praising him. Challenges arose. Department skeptics mocked. Hollywood cop now. But results silenced them. Fewer use of force incidents. Chuck faced his own. Fans demanding justice. "Forgive," he said. "It's the Christian way." A turning point, a joint charity event. Kids sparred, officers demonstrated. A boy asked Marcus, "Did you really taste Chuck Norris?" Marcus laughed. "Yeah, and he taught me a lesson I'll never forget." The story's impact grew. National news featured it. A documentary, From Spark to Strike, the Norris Hale story, won awards. Years later, Marcus, now a sergeant running his own training program, visited Chuck on his birthday. "You changed my life." Chuck smiled. "We changed each other. That's the real black belt, lifting others." Their tale, born from a taser's buzz, became a beacon in misunderstanding. Find understanding, in conflict, seek peace. It proved that even legends and everyday heroes can rewrite endings, one disciplined step at a time.